Dark sojourn.
Dark sojourn is what we're going to call it, and things are looking up. So it's nice to have a full council table, and can somebody please give me a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, and a seconder.
Second.
Thank you, and everybody's in favor.
Excited.
Excellent. And minutes.
Move the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
I've got a question about the minutes from the Board of Variance.
Board of Variance, sure. Rachel, were you there? Can you answer questions about that?
I wasn't in attendance, but I can try and answer any questions you have.
I'm just curious, as it said, approved due to hardship. And there was no specification of what the actual hardship was. And in the report, the word hardship was never mentioned in the application either. So I'm curious as to why and how they ruled.
If I recall, I think there were. I'm not sure if I can answer it this time, but perhaps that's something we could follow up with in the weekly update with council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
If that's acceptable, and if the minutes here are receipt for information, these are draft minutes until they go back to the board. So this is for council's information, so you know that the board did approve this variance at this time, but I
Yeah.
can go back and we can look at that.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious as to, right, it just says due to hardship, and then there was no mention. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so now we can vote to approve the minutes. Did we do that already? Maybe?
I think we did the
I did.
adoption.
We did the adoption. Let's just vote again, just in case. All
Do the
in
receipt.
favor?
Okay.
Thank you. And delegations. Thanks for coming, Betty. So we have the Comox Valley Community Health Network, Substance Use Strategy, and Betty Tate is here to speak to us.
Great, thanks, Mayor Brown. Is this on then? I'm
Yeah.
okay? Okay. So I am Betty Tate, and I'm from the Community Health Network, and I am also involved with the Comox Valley Substance Use Strategy, because that is still an initiative of the Community Health Network. I'm here, bringing regrets from Carrie Hackett, who is our coordinator. She's in bed with COVID today, so I'm doing most of the presentation, and we have Sharon Karsten on Zoom. I'm not sure you're going to be able to see her, but you will be able to hear her in a few minutes. She's with Walk With Me, and has done, her team has done a lot of the conversations that we're going to talk about. And this says it's a midpoint update. There's 3 phases to the substance use strategy. We're in phase 2. We're a bit past the midpoint. We're hoping to have a phase 2 report by April, and then be into phase 3. So with that, I also want to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we work, play, and live is the unceded, stolen traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. And we thank them and their ancestors for the stewardship of our land. And so just a little bit of background. I want to start out first. We just got the latest data on the number of deaths in the Comox Valley from the toxic drug supply, which was not good news for last year. It's the highest ever. 37 people in 2022 lost their lives. And while the substance use strategy, the whole focus is not on toxic drug supply, it's much broader than that: prevention, harm reduction, treatment, safety, and covers all substances. But because this is such a emergency right now, these people aren't very far. As we're losing lives of young people, it's kind of a I don't know, it's just difficult and a shake-up. We've got to get this done. So just a little bit of history. In 2002, a drug strategy committee was formed under the guidance and leadership of the City of Courtenay, and that functioned as a committee of Courtenay for several years, did mostly public awareness and some work in schools. And in 2019, the City of Courtenay asked the network if we would take it on. They were going to transfer the funds that they were paying for the committee to the Community Health Network to broaden the scope, to make it regional, and the membership of the Drug Strategy Committee, and also to that the scope of the strategy would be broader than what the Drug Strategy Committee was doing. So we did take that on, and so at that time, the Village of Cumberland became a partner in this. November 2021, the Phase 1 report was released, and today I want to report on the project the progress so far on Phase 2. And just to remind you that the Village of Cumberland did contribute $10,000 towards this Phase 2 work. So I want to say thank you very much. So just some of the milestones. We did secure $105,000 in funding for Phase 2, and you can see there who the funders are. So Spark BC, we wrote a grant, got $10,000. The Community Foundation, we got a grant from them for $10,000. The Walk With Me Research Project has put in $10,000. The Community Health Network, which is Island Health funding, actually $10,000, and then $30,000 from Courtney, $25,000 from the Regional District, and $10,000 from the Village of Cumberland. So the first thing we did, or we tried to do, it took us a bit longer than we wanted, was to hire a coordinator. So Carrie was hired. It was delayed because we did take a little bit of time to get all those funds in, and we didn't get any applicants in our first round of advertising. So two of us on the leadership team of the Health Network tried to keep it going, although we have been pretty successful at keeping on time. We're a little bit behind, but Carrie started on June 30th, 2023, she started, in August 2022, and because it had taken a while to hire her, we had some funding, so we made her contract to June 2023 so that we would have some continuity into Phase 3. So, and obviously we're hoping to keep her for Phase 3, but she'll be with us at least till the end of June. So I'm going to hand it over to Sharon now. Are you there, Sharon? Who's going to talk about our data collection and conversations we've had with people with lived experience and service providers, which are basically finding the basis for the recommendations for the strategy.
Thank you. Yes. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to represent Walk With Me. Walk With Me is a community engaged research project really centered around substance use as well as the toxic drug poisoning crisis in our local communities. It's very much centered around small communities, and the kind of research that we're doing starts with cultural mapping. Largely, it looks like sitting with people in circles and asking how our systems can work better. So we're really about systems change. We're about reducing stigma and creating ways forward. So we've been really honored to work with the substance use strategy. The substance use strategy has been a part of Walk With Me since the very beginning of Walk With Me on our leadership team. So it made sense as we both released reports in 2021 to collaborate on Phase 2. So what that looked like, the Walk With Me team was honored to sit in circle with peers in the Comox Valley in the spring of 2022, and then with service providers in the fall of 2022. So we sat with over 50 peers and over 25 service providers. We also collaboratively developed a survey. The Walk With Me team created and produced the survey, but we worked with the substance use strategy to determine that was an extra piece that was needed in providing yet another lens and especially for people who might be not inclined to participate in group research sessions. We wanted to make sure that there was another avenue. So we had over 50 respondents to that survey. We are just right now in the thick of the data, weaving things together and are looking forward to co-presenting a report in April of this year. I guess what I would say is that these are incredibly dangerous times, and it's in our small communities. We need to move quickly in order to make progress on this crisis. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Betty. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. So, as Sharon said, Walk With Me is busily analyzing all of the data, and then it's going to go back to the participants, and then we'll have a report. Whoops. So, the other milestone, or the next milestone is we've got a committee right now that is belongs, I guess, to the Community Health Network right now, but we're also recognizing that as we get to recommendations and then implementing recommendations, that we need a broader collaborative throughout the community that can actually oversee the ongoing implementation of the strategy in the Valley. So it's to create a long-term structure. And we're waiting, because we've talked to service providers and peers and getting the service provider input sort of in tandem with the research that Walk With Me has been doing. We've been sort of waiting for that to sort of get a hook for the service providers. And so we're getting close on that. And we're going to be starting collaborative discussions and broadening. Actually, Carrie and I have a meeting with 2 Island Health managers next week, I think it is, to talk about the collaborative. And what we realize is to implement the strategy, we need people in managerial positions in these systems to actually make the changes when we're making system change. So this has been pretty much a community-based committee, and we needed to do that to really, I think, empower the community to feel that they were ready to move on. But we're at a place where involving the school district, North Island College, Island Health, the larger people who have a lot to do with how the system works. So that's going to be happening very shortly. We also, the phase 1 report, if you've seen it, has a lot of data in it, and there's actually a complete data report that's the appendix of it. So we did collect a lot of data in phase 1 that's informed phase 2, and we recognize too that that's going to have to happen ongoing. And again, some of the larger organizations like Island Health, School District 71, NIC have data, and it's a matter of talking with them and doing some data agreements so we can continue. The strategy will be continually informed by ongoing data. This year is actually a big year for data. The McCreary Foundation in Vancouver is doing their adolescent health survey in our schools, starting in the next 6 weeks probably. And they do that survey every 5 years, so it hasn't been done since before the pandemic. And there are questions on there about youth and alcohol and drug use, and they've added some more. We had a meeting with them a few weeks ago. So that's going to be something that's a big piece of data. Of course, we've got the new census data from when we did it before. And also the Community Foundation is doing their vital signs report, which is going to result in an online platform that community can have access to, which is very exciting. And so we've been at that table too and said, we've got to collect some data for the substance use strategy. So we've got community data for that. So we're in the process of doing all that and getting some data agreements in place and actually nailing down what data we want to collect ongoing. It'll change, but get sort of a baseline of what's the important data we need to watch going forward to see if we're being successful. And then we're trying to get funding for phase 3. So we are writing some grants and we're making requests to local government for the 2023-24 budget cycle. So that's part of what's next. We're completing the data analysis, the collaborative, the data agreements, funding. The phase 2 report will be completed hopefully by the 1st or 2nd week of April. We'll be coming back with that at some point after that to tell you what the recommendations are. We anticipate that there'll be recommendations in this report that hopefully will push systems change and where the systems need to change. I think one thing we'll all agree with is that it's not about tinkering around the edges. There's big system change that needs to happen to address all of this. Then there'll be an event to launch phase 3, which will be in the spring. And last thing is what we're asking of the Village of Cumberland is continued partnership. Both Mayor Brown and Councillor Kettler have been involved with the strategy. Some financial support. We've asked for $15,000 from we've evened it out this year. So we're asking for that from all the municipalities. I think you noticed probably that Comox wasn't on so I don't, anyway, we're going back to them this year and actually I'm doing this on Wednesday night with them. In-kind support if we need data sharing from the Village of Cumberland, and in-kind support, which we've had all along for phase 2 and 3, and a continued appointment of a council member to participate, and we've had 2. So that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and thanks very much for your support so
Thanks.
far for almost 2 years.
Yes. Thanks so much, Betty. And thanks, Sharon, if you're still there. Questions, Council? Go ahead, Councillor Kettler.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Betty and Sharon. I think it's really difficult work just dealing with, the level of distress in the community over this. But I mean, even the actual work of gathering the data on something so sensitive is really difficult, but so important to facilitate that systems change that is needed. So thank you so much for doing that. I was a little concerned. I was away in Ottawa last week, but heard about the issue in Campbell River where they tried to pass a bylaw about fining people who may be using in parks or public spaces. And I think that's really going against the systems change that we're looking for, trying to recognize that it is a health issue and not a criminal issue. And so I felt like that was kind of trying to push the dial back the other way. Is there, and they also refused to have or accept an Island Health letter that was sent on the topic. They refused to receive it. And just, again, saying that it's, I guess, not a health issue and pushing it more toward the criminal side. I'm just wondering, as the committee, is there work there for us just to make sure that sort of that fear-based decision-making isn't happening in other communities? Because the federal temporary pilot that they've allowed us to have possession of small amounts of illicit drugs hadn't even gone into effect yet. So they didn't really have a reason to say, this is causing a problem. But that sort of preemptive fear-based stuff, how can we make sure that that's not happening in other communities?
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm going to let Sharon comment too, because she does some work in Walk With Me does some work in Campbell River. But I should have said one of the big pieces of this report going forward is going to be the whole issue of stigma and discrimination. And that's clearly what we're seeing there. And it's not isolated to Campbell River. And we've certainly seen it locally in our newspapers since the decriminalization pilot project came in. It's not an experiment, it's a pilot project. And so we are looking at drafting something with real information about what that is. And there are some good resources for that. First Nations Health Authority has put up a really good thing about what decriminalization and it is and it isn't, which I can certainly send to you. But I think that message that it's a health issue, not a criminal issue, is a really important one. This is a public health emergency. Substance use is a health issue, and it's become something different. But anyway, Sharon, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, what complicated times we're living in. And yeah, I was up in Campbell River this week, and I don't know how to respond other than that. It hurts my heart. I did hear that there has been, and I could be wrong, this is going on hearsay, but that there was a lawsuit that came forward in relation to that ruling that's now going forward. So I think that there are countermeasures that are in play that are important and that need to happen. And I also just believe that at moments when legislation changes, there's just often a high degree of volatility that sometimes calms when people see that things aren't radically different. And so I don't know what to say other than, the health perspective is uber important, but beyond the health perspective, a recognition of our broken systems as at fault. It's not an individual issue. This is how we hold. It's about how we hold people in our community in a good way and how our systems work to support people. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah. One other thing I just mentioned is I know that from this community, there's a grant gone into Island Health. They had just a recent call for proposals, and this grant that's going in is related to the EOI got through that and were invited to put a grant in, and it is to work with businesses in the Comox Valley around stigma and discrimination and education and that sort of thing. I think that's another piece of the strategy and piece of the work that needs to happen. So fingers crossed we might get that grant too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Councillor Barkey.
Hi.
Hi.
It's probably, thank you for your presentation. It's probably a little bit preliminary, but can you speak in general terms of some of the systems changes that you've perhaps uncovered to this point, just for our education?
I'm going to hand that over to Sharon.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can expect to see, so when we look at the support systems at place in the Valley, we're looking at recovery-based support systems, harm reduction-based support systems, and we're looking at key recommendations that have been brought forward. You will see recommendations around medical detox and the lack of a local medical detox facility in the Valley. You'll see recommendations around what we're calling supportive housing, which has many different names, but essentially what's going to stop the cycle, what's going to enable people to be well in a longer term sense and stop continuous cycling or limit continuous cycling through and therefore just produce wellness. So that's one thing to look out for. Another is around harm reduction. Just looking at the various components. There's a wide range. I'm struggling with where to begin because there's a wide range of recommendations around harm reduction and how we hold harm reduction, ranging from safe supply to managed alcohol programs. I feel like I'm starting on a list that would be too long for this meeting. So
It was a big question. Yeah, no,
that's
I
just a
realize
taste of what's coming up. But I really do want to spend the time and deliver that in a good way, if I could say that, rather than in a kind of snapshot. So I'll just leave it there for now. Thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
The other thing that I would say, just related to local government, is one of the questions that was asked us by Courtney last week. Have you got any stats on where cannabis shops are, where alcohol is being sold, and I said, no, we don't. And then I Googled it, the BC government, it's all there. So even that sort of thing, mapping where people can get alcohol, where they're getting cannabis, where, not only like drinking establishments too, not just buying alcohol. There's all those sorts of things that, like, when decisions are made around new licenses and everything, what's happening and how many are we jamming all together. And so it's like an immediate recommendations and backing, as Sharon says, backing up and changing our system and thinking about these things. And yeah, so that's
Can I-
just, and
Can I
that just
add
came
to
us.
that, Betty, just to say that, sorry, it's Betty, it's weird to be like
I know.
speaking to the back of your head. Sorry. Just to add to say, our like this particular project was really dependent. It's, I guess you would call it grounded research. So we sit with people and then we work with what comes forward in those sessions. So this wider mapping is not necessarily a part of the recommendations that will come forward. There may be other reports that come forward later. Really, we're responding to the most pressing gaps in our services brought forward by the groups that were present in these research sessions, as well as the strengths of our systems. That's where our research is focused. So that's what will come forward. And then beyond that, there are many other recommendations for things that need doing. You can only do so much in a report of this size. So yeah, just to be, not to set up expectations around that, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's why we wanted data agreements, so those kind of things can be ongoing as we look at things and yeah. Because, I mean, Sharon's quite right. What we started with is, the question was, have you tried to get service or used a service in the last 2 years? So that is what we got the information about, right? So it's really that big service system. But we've also had people harm reduction and prevention and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah.
There'll be lots to work on, I'm quite sure.
Yes. Any other questions? Councillor Sullivan?
Sure, yeah, thanks you guys for your presentation. Just we know that Courtney's taken the brunt of all this, a lot of these issues with the services that are mostly centered around there. It'd just be nice that if all the municipalities would feel the responsibility, because we all live in the same valley here. So on this ask, maybe it would be nice that everybody is included.
100%, and that's exactly what we are endeavoring to do, and that it's available to everyone across the region, right? I mean, we have these municipalities and regional district or electoral areas, and there's boundaries, but people travel from, and yeah, absolutely, it's everyone's responsibility.
Humanity's
This.
responsibility.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good way.
Thanks for your presentation. I'm not so much a question, just this isn't a problem just here in the Comox Valley. This is province-wide, nationwide. Are you receiving any outside support from, there's the new pilot project that's going on, but is the provincial government providing any more support at local levels to help with, or is this something like, is the wheel being reinvented in every community?
I actually don't know how many communities in BC are doing substance use strategies like this. We might be a little bit ahead of that, and Sharon might know more than me. I know of many in Ontario. Ontario's done a lot of work, and we've seen those and looked at those. And right now, it sort of goes through fits and starts with what the provincial government funds or doesn't fund, and the federal government too, right? So right now we've had no support from I guess Island Health money is technically provincial government money, and no, the municipalities aren't. But I don't know. You haven't got any provincial funding, have you? You've got research funding, federal funding.
Yeah, well, we have Walk With Me at Large has provincial funding, yes, from BC Arts Council. Vancouver Foundation is, I guess, it's a provincial organization, even though it wears the name Vancouver. So yes, I would say we have provincial funding, federal funding, yes, local funding. So yeah, this is these are complex issues that need to be dealt with on many different levels. And I think all of our communities are looking to other communities to see what they're doing right now and what are the best practices. And we're all just doing our best in the wake of an escalating crisis. And so, yeah, what that means in terms of numbers across BC of small communities having produced strategies like this, I couldn't answer that at the moment, but I will say that there's a remarkable interest right now in this issue and in just what you might call social fragmentation, issues beyond just substance use that are about our communities essentially falling apart. And so how can we bring people together? What are the ingredients that combat that kind of fragmentation and that allow people to have value and purpose in community?
And I just want to add to that. I don't want to take all your time, but we're talking about a substance use strategy, but substance use is an incredibly complex intersectoral issue that intersects with housing, with trauma, with poverty, with none of these things are in isolation. And that's another thing we're really trying to do when you're looking at changing systems, is addressing all of these things. And it's complex, but we've also spent many years trying to do them, or decades or whatever, trying to do these things in isolation of each other, and they're just all overlapping when you look at the person. And so there's usually many, many factors that lead to substance use. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is the human using the substance is just a symptom and a product of all the things that came before, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and as we know, the opposite of addiction is connection. So it's important that we do this work in our communities, because that's where people find connection. Pivot Legal Society is challenging Campbell River, so it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. And thank you both for all your work. It's been a pleasure working with you for the last couple of years, and I've learned so much. And thank you both for leading this charge, and thank you for being here. And good luck in Comox on Wednesday.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, unfinished business. Beaufort Health Society. Do we want to have a conversation around this? Does anybody have questions, or there's a recommendation there?
And I would just add that since council considered this, there's a letter that has been received following the presentation that outlines their situation in a little bit more detail and clarifies the ask.
Yes, thank you to the society for providing that information.
Yeah, so it was a good presentation, and I mean, they're doing pretty critical work here. I think it's a really good model. We've seen the doctor-owned model fail a couple of times in the village over the past few years. So having a nonprofit society run a clinic here, I think is a really great model, more sustainable model, putting our community's health less at risk. Yeah, I would like to support them in their work, and support the recommendation that staff have put forward.
Anybody else?
I agree. Happy to support them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we just talked about the impact of health and connection, and so I think having a doctor in our community is really, really important, and I think this model is so well suited to Cumberland. So yeah, I'm happy to support it as well. Can I have a mover?
I'll move the council direct staff to bring forward a report on funding options for the Beaufort Family Health Society through conditional grant, service agreement, or permissive tax exemption.
Thank you. Seconder.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Excellent. Thank you. Heritage Alteration Permit Extension. Hello, Karen.
Hi.
Hello, Courtney.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
The story of the parking lot coming back. No, that's not it. The story of the building that's going in the parking lot.
Yeah. So yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, you're in some way or another all familiar with this application, probably. Initial application was made in 2019 and approved by council at that time for heritage alteration permit for the space next to between the liquor store and the building, that little two-story building next to the Waverly Hotel. So the applicant was not able to proceed with the development due to a number of issues, mostly related to just a drop in the market and being also involved in other projects elsewhere and changing market conditions. So he's asking for an extension for the heritage alteration permit. The permit expires after 2 years, and so the project hasn't been substantially commenced, I suppose. So he's still intending to proceed with the project. He's asking for an extension. I just outlined briefly in the report what the status is. So the permit was initially issued. There's still some outstanding, we're still waiting for design, and that will come forward, I think, when he's actually starting to work on this project for the one wall facing east. It's a large wall that of 3 stories, the force is setback of 3 stories that you would see walking up Dunsmuir Avenue for those councillors who knew. So that design, a mural design, is still part of the permit and would be, and there's a security that's covering the estimate that he provided for the permit. So that would still come forward to council. He, at the time, he also applied for a development variance permit. So one was for parking spaces, which was not granted, and one was for the minimum floor to ceiling height for the first floor. He wanted to lower it somewhat. It's quite high. Historic commercial buildings have quite high ceilings. So this is to accommodate the full size of the building. So that was granted at the time. So by approving the heritage alteration permit, because the variance is part of the permit and the drawings in the permit, then you're also approving the extension to that variance specifically to the floor to ceiling height, the minimum floor to ceiling height, which the variance permitted to be lower. Staff support the application primarily because there's really the design hasn't changed. It was approved previously. The heritage design guidelines haven't changed since then. We're not doing an OCP review right now, or we're not in the middle of it. That would maybe change things. So from a staff perspective, it's appropriate to extend the permit and just recognize that there'd be a delay in construction.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Berge?
Oh, no.
Anybody?
I've got a
Go ahead.
I didn't see anywhere in the report you gave with the parking. There was a parking variance issued as well?
No, there wasn't. So he requested a parking variance at the time.
Okay,
That was part of the variance application, and no, that was denied.
okay,
So the only variance that was issued was related to the minimum floor to ceiling height of the ground floor.
so the current parking situation would comply with our new parking policy then?
It still does, yeah. Yeah, he's would be asked to pay cash in lieu for the parking that he can't accommodate on the site, which is for residential.
Okay. And the mural, that would still be part of it? Do we have a public art policy? Who gets to decide what's...
Yeah, we don't really have a public art policy, and that was, I think, the challenge with the review and providing a direction of what the village wanted to see there. So yes, we don't right now, which is a little bit of a challenge. But there's still some time before he's starting construction. He'll actually be in a position to draw up a mural. So we'll definitely connect, and also maybe with the arts and cultural plan. I don't know if the policy is part of that. Or a review of the heritage design guidelines as part of the OCP review. That could be potentially also something about those kind of things. But right now we don't really have one. It would just be, if he comes forward right away, he would present option and would be discussed here and decision made at the council.
Right. I thought we referred the mural to the Heritage Committee.
There was a resolution to create a framework for reviewing these kind of proposals.
Deferred it.
Yeah.
Allowed it it go and just let that sort of floating around, that decision, I thought. Like it was.
Did you want to finish what you were saying?
I think it is floating. Yeah, so actually the November 9th council direction has it has the resolution is there under previous council direction. So to collect the security, that's what we was decided at the time because there was no decision made on the mural. And then direct staff to prepare a report with mural options and process to complete the project for council consideration. Oh, there must, you know what? I think I'm missing one, which I might not have put in here because it wasn't directly related. I don't know why I didn't put it in here. Oh, maybe that was the last. We'd have to look. Because I do remember something vaguely that there was a resolution about developing a framework for evaluating these kind of things.
Yeah, I just know we tried to sort of move it
Do
to
it
a different
later.
group of people because I don't think this group is really qualified to deal with murals. I'm not an artist.
Yeah, don't ask me to judge her.
So yeah.
I don't know if we passed on it. I do think we had a conversation about that
Yeah.
we weren't qualified, but I don't think we also passed on
No.
those decisions either. We want
No.
to still be involved.
And so did you say that in the arts and culture plan that's maybe in the scope?
I know.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be within the scope. It's more focused on, I guess, public buildings and facilities. Like, we wouldn't have a policy come out of that process.
Okay.
So what I would suggest, it sounds like maybe we can do a little bit more research on where that process landed and report back to council just so you have a
Yeah, maybe
clearer
we need
idea.
like a mural panel or something that we call in at these critical times in our development. Okay. Thank you. Does someone want to move the recommendation or are there more questions?
I did have
Sorry, Councillor Kettler.
Sorry.
I did have another question just about the parking. Are they intending to board it again, or will they leave that lot open until such time as development commences?
You know, I haven't checked with him. I think the fence was taken down, and I think initially was put up because construction seemed more imminent. You know, it was to safeguard the site for construction, and now that it may, I don't know if he has timing yet at this point. I haven't heard that he was going to put it back, so at this point.
Good. Thank you. Somebody want to move?
I'll move that council approve the extension of the 2019-01 HAP for the proposed development at 2700 Dunsmuir Avenue, legally described as Parcel B, DDA 26122 of lots 3 and 4, Block 3, District Lot 21, Nelson District Plan 522 until November 9th, 2024.
Thank you. And a seconder.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, inclusion welcome at village public facilities. Who's speaking to that? Is that gonna be you?
I can give a brief report. This is a recommendation from the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee to direct staff to display the Everybody Welcome stickers for diversity and accessibility on diversity and inclusion on village public facilities. And this came about as the committee was reviewing a checklist for accessibility for special events that would be distributed to event organizers, both taking place through rental of village facilities as well as other venues in the community. And the community thought that since a lot of those special events are being taking place in village facilities, that it would make sense for the village to display the stickers as well. So the committee did make that recommendation. The stickers are available from the Cumberland Business Association for a $5 contribution that is donated to the Rainbow House Transitional Housing Project, and the village can acquire those stickers from the Business Association. And I just thought I should note that I believe the intention wasn't explicit by the committee, but I would think the public facilities would include the recreation and cultural facilities of the village office, this building, the council chamber, and the fire hall as well, because there is a public desk as well at the fire hall.
Awesome. Thank you. Questions, comments?
Yeah, I was there, and yeah, we just felt that it would be a good idea to, you know, we're a public, so we should make it clear that we are open to all the public. And I brought a dozen of the stickers. Pass those on to you.
Yeah.
Let's see what's in
motion
the envelope
first.
first.
If
What
we
is
are
in the
support of this,
envelope?
I have brought a dozen of the stickers along.
Excellent.
Shameless plug, Sure Copy is donating the stickers, the printing of the stickers, and Elizabeth Lee Notary is distributing them at this time.
Oh,
Now,
nice.
with permission from
This-
the Out Central Oregon. She just phoned him up and asked him if she was allowed to print them off.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Who wants to move the recommendation?
Where is it? Sure. I'll move that council direct staff to display the Everybody Welcome stickers for diversity and accessibility on village public facilities.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Now you may pass the envelope. Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
she just asked that you make a small donation to the Don 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 Rainbow House. Yep.
All righty. Strategic priorities.
I can give a brief report on this one. So council is scheduled to meet in mid-March to develop this council's strategic priorities that will guide the village's corporate management and decision-making for the next few years. And the timing is right with Village Hall scheduled for March 6th to give an opportunity for the community to come out and give some feedback to council on what the community members may think might be those overarching priorities. So we thought we might offer that opportunity and do a bit of advertising before the Village Hall on March 6th, and just looking for council's direction to do so.
Questions? Comments?
Oh, can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Will there be an opportunity for people to send in, or like not a form, but just to direct within that advertising that, you know, people label it strategic priority when involve the village more within that, so that it's not just council. We can take questions in and bring that into the strategic priority meeting.
We would open it up probably for people to email comments in. They wouldn't necessarily have to come to the Village Hall
Right, that's what I
meeting.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, and give a deadline for a few days later, just so we can collate those submissions for council before you guys meet.
Okay, no,
Absolutely.
Right, because we're meeting on the 13th, I
It's the
believe.
third week of March, I think. So the Village Hall is on the 6th, so we could have it by the end of that week. I think the March 8th, perhaps, we can have that. I don't have the dates in front of me, but we'll give a few days, and currently Cumberland comes out at the beginning of March, so there would be
okay.
that time, and we could put it on the website before then.
Yeah, just for people that don't make it
Yeah.
in person, which is quite a few. Often.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything else? Anybody? Yeah, I appreciate this. I think it's important for us to hear. I know we all heard during the campaign period probably a whole lot of things. But I think anytime we're looking to make strategic decisions around the village, the more input we have from the residents, the better. So, so yeah, my question was just around that too. So we will send out a deadline for input and make sure people know.
Yes, absolutely.
It's an opportunity, people, to have some input. Please show up. So there's a recommendation there.
I'd like to move that council direct staff to include community consultation on the 2024 to 2027 strategic priorities as a topic on the agenda for the March 6, 2023 Village Hall meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, monthly reports. Oh, and I have to go first. Okay. Gonna try and find something interesting here. Mostly orientation and budget and that sort of thing. So I think you guys all got my report as a late item because I was on a jet plane. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, you can read it at your leisure. Councillor Barecki, do you want to speak to yours?
Okay. In the 6th of January, we met in conjunction with Mayor Brown. We met with Dale Valance. He's a representative for Coal Valley Estates, and we toured the next phase of the development and expressed some of our concerns. There's potential for this project to change hand in the next phase of development, so they're doing quite a bit of engineering on it with B4 Engineering, High Engineering, and Daryl Brazier. The road linking up to Penrith requires it to be up to MMCD codes. We tried to discuss some of the traffic calming measures that we'd like to see, so there's a bit of back and forth that went on there with that. We also discussed some of the property encroachment onto the road allowance there, where the sidewalks would be placed, and we're still negotiating the steep setback. The steep bank will be given to the village, but I think we'd all like to see a little bit more in terms of protecting the top of that ridge and viewscape so that it doesn't end up looking like it does above the pump house currently. And what else? Also met with the members of the 125th Anniversary Committee, and we're looking at having a structure of having a steering committee, with a larger working group roundtable, and then finally the workforce, kind of a pyramid type structure. During that, we discussed having a village potluck picnic, having a town hall musical jam, since this town is chock-a-block full of musicians. We'd also have a mosaic in the park, the art, not the landowner behind us, and then having a single stage for entertainment purposes. And the first step is to get an RFP out for an events coordinator, which I think
It's out.
Yeah,
It's out.
it's out. Yeah,
It's out and it's
so
active.
that's my 2 cents.
Councillor Kettler.
Thank you. Yeah, like the mayor said, there was a lot of orientation post-election stuff, but also some business happening at the regional district. The Recreation Commission, they gave us a aquatic strategy, field, sports field strategy, and ice arena strategy to look at. And the aquatic strategy had some pretty hefty price tags associated with it. There's talk about decommissioning the outdoor pool in Courtney at Lewis Center there, and maybe doing something combined. There was a proposal to put an outdoor pool at the aquatic center, and various configurations. The pool at the sports center had been closed for quite a long time. There was a leak that prevented it from being used for many months, and so that has been fixed apparently, and the pool is up and running again. But long term, the facilities are quite old and do need some serious upgrade, and so require some pretty serious investment. But no decisions have been made on that, so it's just sort of some options that we're looking at right now.
Was there any more options about the ice options? The ice sheet options?
Yeah, there is discussion about maybe the pool that was not functioning, turning it into other things. There's still high demand at peak times, but the report is saying that we don't have an overabundance of demand for the arena outside of the peak times. We could still make things work sort of with what we have. So The field study, they are looking at putting a field, well, they sort of ruled out most things except for 3 options. I think they had Vanier, Highland, and Billmore as possible new turf field locations. So that's still being discussed, but that was what was presented at the meeting. We did a sort of just a touch base type of strategic planning, because we're not supposed to do our full strategic planning at the regional district board until June. But some of the main topics that came up were the social development service, community partnerships, policy and procedure, and climate crisis and environmental stewardship. So those were the key topics of the day for that day, and looking at what services we could use, what current services we have that could fit into those categories, or what new services we might need to address those arising issues. So stay tuned for that as well. I attended the Waste Management Board on behalf of Councillor Sullivan, as he was ill from surgery, and I asked again about when we will be collecting the landfill gas from the landfill, because we're still flaring it after many years. So they said that they should be finalizing the agreement anytime now. So hopefully that is true, and we can look for that. Campbell River is also waiting for, they just got all the gas capture infrastructure put in, but they're actually waiting for the flare. They were having some supply chain issues with actually getting the flare and getting that going there. And there is a proposed tax increase for that service, $12 per 100,000 assessment value. At a regular meeting, we talked about, we just recently did a land acquisition to complete the One Spot Trail near Condensary Bridge there, and we also had quite a large donation of land in Area C, waterfront land, that you'll be hearing more about once they have a better plan for it. A BC assessment came to the regional district, and Cumberland's assessment on residential single family is increased by 15%, the average, which is higher than the rest of the region. I think Courtenay was only like 7%, and I think Comox maybe 9% increase. So because we are still considerably more increased assessment values than the rest of the valley, that does make an impact on the percentage of the pie that we pay, because most of the services are based on assessment value. So it does hit us a little bit again this year.
Royston's share of fire will be lower as well then?
No, I don't think for the fire service, but for the percentage of for solid waste or for hospital board, for example, all based on assessment, then we take just that, a little bit more of the slice of that pie, unfortunately. Yeah, and that's all I really need to report on, I think, and happy to, right, sorry. Yeah, big news for us was that we came up with a corporate energy and emissions plan at the regional district, and that we staff put forward a draft for the internal cost of carbon. And so that was accepted, and we're moving forward on that. So for the first time, we'll be accounting for carbon making in our decision. So we took the sort of standard of $160 per ton carbon, so that those decisions that normally those things are an externality, we now have it in front of us that there is a cost to carbon, and this is what it is, and it'll help us move toward carbon neutrality and toward a better planet, hopefully.
Thank you. Councillor Therian. Or Councillor Sullivan.
What? I'm here now.
Yes. Yes, please report on your...
Hello, everyone. I am back. Thank you. Thanks to Councillor Kettler for filling in for me a couple weeks ago. I really only have one meeting to report on. The hospital board was 22 minutes. We elected Doug Hillian as the chair. That was it.
And that was it.
And Edwin Grief is the vice. And I just will take this opportunity to thank you guys at council for holding the fort together, and a really heartfelt thank you to this community for contributing to all the support, all the phone calls, the food, financial and otherwise, mental, love, support. I love this place. I love you all. Thank you very much for pulling me through this, and hopefully healthy from here on in. Thanks.
Knock on wood. Thank you. Councillor Therian.
Yeah, hi. So I was at just a couple meetings other than our budget meetings and et cetera, the Accessibility Inclusion Committee meeting on January 16th, where we came up with the resolution that we just passed. At that meeting, they've done a lot of hard work there. That was my first meeting with them. They've done a lot of hard work on getting the checklist more or less finalized. I think it's almost done, right? Yeah. But there seems to be a bit of a what next? What's the next project for the committee? There's a lot of great people on the committee, so I think that's going to be kind of what's maybe when we're looking at the terms of reference. If council can provide some direction or some ideas as to, what we want to see from that committee, I think would be very useful. The other one I did, went down to Nanaimo for the VRL, the Regional Library Board meeting. We elected a new executive, Aaron Hemmons from Nanaimo will be the chair. Fred Robertson from Port Hardy, vice chair, and representing the Comox Valley, Daniel Arbor is also on the executive. The library board's working on, they've just finished up their stakeholder consultation. So moving forward with a new strategic plan. So that's going to be before us here in the next several months. The big stat that came out of that really surprised me was that they found out that 45% of people struggle with literacy in one way or another. So that's going to be like number one priority is looking at how to improve literacy. Wow. Yeah. There's a new library planned in Masset. Yeah. So, yeah, things will be moving along there. It's going to be interesting.
Awesome. Thank you for your representation there. Anybody have questions on any of that information?
Just one for Jesse. Are you still using pre-COVID, what am I trying to say? Pre-COVID numbers for growth, population growth? Because for planning of, facility planning, planning in the future, I know the report came back and said that the pools are fine, and will be for several years out based on, well, bad numbers because they're all pre-COVID numbers.
Yeah, so all those strategies were done by consultants who I think they were using whatever was available from StatsCan most recently, but that's...
Yeah, so this is what I'm seeing with a lot of the consultant reports is that they start with what I consider bad assumptions And then you end up down the line with a report that, has a bunch of recommendations, but
I think
the
they went pretty
underlying
in-depth. They
numbers were
looked,
never very good to begin with that they started with.
yeah, like for the aquatic strategy, for example, they were looking at like different demographics, what the growing demographics are, and who uses the pool, and does that make sense with what those demographics will be in 5-10 years, kind of thing. So I think they did a pretty decent job on that. Yeah.
It's possible that they didn't have the census numbers at the time of the
Yeah.
report, right? It would have been the old census, and so that's just what
Yeah, because things are growing much faster
they are.
than were anticipated, I think.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There's recommendation to receive those reports.
The council will receive mayor and council monthly reports for January.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. No notices, no new business, so we're gonna wait for questions. Any questions from our mass audience?
Actually, yes. My name is Marmot Moore. I live on Penrith. I came because there were these notice that I was just looking at my phone. I'm sorry, that's kind of rude, but I couldn't find them again. I thought that there was going to be this huge group of people here talking about development, and from the things that I saw, and that didn't turn out. So I'll just say my piece. I just moved home to my home after 20 years of working in the country, and I wanted to know.
Can I stop you for 1 second? So we only allow, unfortunately, questions related to the agenda. Can you find something on the agenda related to your
Yes.
question?
It doesn't. I'm going to wonder if the facade of the building next to Waverly is going to echo what it says in the heritage 4 blocks or 5 blocks that are supposed to be heritage well, echo is my best word,
Yeah.
design, or whether they're going to look like those two 70s monstrosities that are on the south side of the other side of the street. And a mural, I am an artist, so I do appreciate murals, but a mural doesn't make any difference if the facade looks that horrendous. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. And you're welcome to attend any meeting anytime. And you can also send questions by email, and you can also contact us directly if you have concerns or things you would like to let us know about in relation to development at any time, not just at a council meeting. And there is a drawing of the building that is proposed on, or that is approved on, in that location.
Page 46.
On the agenda package, if you have access for that.
Something is, since both of those buildings are absolutely no improvement over the bad architecture on the other side of the street, I wonder if this new council is going to do anything about honoring what I always considered to be a heritage view of what went into the town, so it doesn't look like a suburb of Vancouver, or a strip mall.
Yeah, so what we have is a bylaw that regulates heritage heritage in the village. So it's called a heritage alteration permit, I believe. And each developer is required to work within those guidelines. Those guidelines may not be what you hope them to be. I would recommend that you have a look at them, and if you have suggestions on what you think they should change or how they should change, to reach out to the Heritage Committee by way of emailing info@cumberland.ca, and then they can have a look at that, or you could send it to council and we can have a look at it. because we're bound by those heritage guidelines, and because we have a huge variety of ages of buildings in the village. There's no one like cookie cutter heritage look that we prescribe. So because we don't want things looking artificial. So it is something I think that the Heritage Committee and Council struggle with all the time when new development comes to the especially to the village core.
Can I just,
Councillor Berkey.
I'd just like to add, and I sympathize with you on this as well. I'm sitting on the Heritage Committee as well, and a lot of the things that we run the Advisory Planning Commission, you know, that was a complaint that came from a lot of people. Some of this construction design that you're seeing is actually also out of the village's hands. There's now, especially with multi-level buildings like that, there's provincial guidelines that, you know, determine what types of material can, you know, be on the outside of building, you know, limit the use of wood or flammable materials and things like that really we still have to adhere to, and the developers still have to adhere to, as well as things like the seismic upgrades that go on within them, or how they're built to the construction. So they are also limited in a sense as to what they can provide from an industry standard. So it's
I really understand how difficult it is. Those are just bad designs. They're lazy. And there are lots of people who design buildings that can stay within what I imagine a heritage sensibility would be. And they're just what used to be referred to as 70s ugly.
I was born in the 70s. I'm just kidding.
You know what I'm talking about? You know, they maybe were the hospital you were born in.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
You know,
Some people like these buildings and designs too.
yeah, and
That's
very,
a
very
thing too.
few do. I've heard constantly.
We've just had many
Okay, let's
meetings
not-
about this building. We've definitely heard a lot about it.
But you know, I welcome you to write in with the heritage.
Okay, I'm going to end this conversation. You're welcome to hang around, and if councillors are interested in speaking more about this. Any other questions online? Nope. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you.